This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for your time and for your company. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, has blasted Australia's ambassador to the US, Kevin Rudd, at the White House.
I don't like you either. I don't, and I probably never will.
And I probably never will. It is so embarrassing for Australia, but Kevin Rudd only has himself to blame here for posting and then deleting on social media that Donald Trump is a village idiot and a traitor to the West. Now, after being totally humiliated by the President of the United States, Australia's ambassador Kevin Rudd chased down the President, offering a grovelling apology for his stupid comments in the past. But there are right now plenty of calls right here in Australia to see Kevin Rudd pack his bags. We'll have much more to say on this later in the show, but first, let's look at the events over the weekend where the looniest of the lefties gathered to rally against democracy, taking to the streets in what they call a No Kings protest. A protest against the democratically elected President of the United States. And among those calling on Americans to get out there and march was, of course, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who shared this video on social media that really got the lefties going and must have had the President shaking in his boots.
We're going to tear up the crown.
Breaking a crown and posting it to social media. Well done, Nancy Pelosi. But let's take a look at those lovely, charming, completely sane protesters that took to the streets over the weekend, starting with this woman who spent her birthday marching with her family.
There's no other way I'd want to celebrate my birthday than with my parents and my best friend fighting for our country.
So for a birthday present, what do you hope happens? You know, you wake up tomorrow morning.
I hope that I see the obituary that we're all waiting for tomorrow. That's what I hope for. Yeah.
you wishing that President Trump is dead?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And let's look at another No Kings protester who's calling on other lefties to get meaner.
We need to get ourselves together and we might even need to be a little bit meaner because the Republicans don't mind being mean.
And by mean, what do you mean? Do you mean protesting? Do you mean...
Maybe we have to, I don't know, stop being so nice.
Because you seem like a pretty nice lady.
I'm a pretty nice lady, but I can be pretty mean too.
Okay, and I have to ask this because people on the other side are going to say that they feel like the Democrat Party has been mean. Recently, with Charlie Kirk being assassinated,
Kirk is a piece of garbage. Of course we were mean. I am so tired of people saying, oh, but, you know, it's a terrible thing. No, Hitler is dead. I'm glad Hitler's dead. Evil people have no place in my world. He was a hateful human being. It was disgusting, the things that he said and did. I don't have time for that. I'm sorry. I have to point my energy in other directions.
And here's another measured, rational Liberal making an excellent point.
He was a racist because he was a misogynist, and that means that you are too because you support him. Get out! Get out of here!
He hated people. Yeah, just
he hated
anyone that wasn't white, that wasn't male, that wasn't straight.
They're still triggered by Charlie Kirk. Wow. Now, the President has a message for these seriously deranged lefties who will be certainly triggered again to learn that Donald Trump is a president and not a king.
By the way, I'm not a king. I'm not a king. I work my ass off to make our country great. That's all it is. I'm not a king at all.
Joining us now is Hilary Fordwich, President and founder of Strellmark. Hilary, it's wonderful to see you again. Let's start with these so-called No Kings protests that occurred over the weekend. And we've seen plenty of lefties having meltdowns, celebrating Charlie Kirk's death and wishing death on the President at these rallies. So a really charming group of people attending. But we've also seen some bizarre dance performances. It's pretty painful to watch, but I'm sorry to do this, but I'm going to put you through it. it doesn't stop. And then you look at the banners that they've got behind them. I mean, Hillary, can I get your reaction? And why do we so often see old people taking to the streets performing like this to make a point against Donald Trump?
Well, wonderful to be back with you again. And what I find is absolutely even more ridiculous than those silly, ghastly dances is that I don't think they know what they're talking about. First of all, if Donald Trump was a powerful, omnipresent king, then we wouldn't have a government shutdown right now. If he was a king and could just like wave a wand and stop it or command people to open up the government, then he would. So he's not a king. Secondly, they probably don't understand anything about kings because at least the UK king, King Charles, is a constitutional monarch. Even he wouldn't have the power to reopen the government. So I don't think they understand, number one, what a king is. I don't think they know much because if you ask them anything about the Magna Carta, if you ask them anything about King John and where it was signed and what it meant and the constitutional monarchy, they don't even know. So they're demonstrating their idiocy. It's rather like when there were all those protests from the river to the sea. I wanted to ask them, Gabriella, do you know which river? Do you know which sea? So I think they don't know what they're talking about. They're actually protesting something which actually isn't occurring. And then last but not least, when you said about their age, it's their age, but also all of those banners and everything was very well prepared. And there, of course, is a lot of speculation. And President Trump has said this. They are Soros-backed and funded. I think these people are funded because otherwise their signs all wouldn't be so similar, nor would they have all these organized routines, Gabriella.
Well, let's talk about that. There are reports that George Soros foundations have been backing the No Kings protests. And of course, we know that George Soros is the founder of the Open Society Foundations, which funds plenty of left-wing activism and also has financial ties to the Indivisible project, which was managing data and communications with participants for these No Kings protests. Now, Ted Cruz has also raised the alarm about this on Fox News. Let's take a listen.
You look at this No Kings rally, and there's considerable evidence that George Soros and his network is behind funding these rallies, which may well be riots all across the country, and Soros is writing the check.
Hillary, can I get your thoughts on this?
Yes, there is speculation. I'm not going to say something that isn't totally proven, but it looks like it is from everything that you're hearing from whether it's President Trump, as you mentioned there, Ted Cruz, but also the DOJ and the FBI is investigating this. I will say that he has funded to the tune of $32 billion that Open Society Foundation, and they have declared that they do back such things. They've said it's their right to protest and their right for free speech, but it isn't a right to violence, and it isn't a right to be what is viewed as and definitely seems very anti-American, Gabriella. And as I mentioned before, they don't know what they're talking about because we don't have a king, or he would have opened up the government.
They have no idea what they are talking about. And then if you listen to some of them, what they have to say is certainly not nice. But look, we are just 2 weeks away from the mayoral election in New York City. And of course, the front runner is Democrat Zohran Mamdani. And he's making it no secret that if he is elected, which he's likely to be, he'll be putting taxes up and up. He was asked about this on Fox News. Let's take a listen.
So a lot of individuals in this city pay more than 50% of their income in taxes. When you talk about a fair share, how much more than that? What is the fair share? What's the number?
I've said that we should increase personal income taxes by 2%.
Is fair?
And my point is this:
give up more than half of your income. That's
if you're making $1 million in New York City or more than that, you can afford to pay 2% more. And the reasons you can afford to do so is because that money will be used to better your quality of life as well.
As Margaret Thatcher famously said, the problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. But Zohran Mamdani has also come under fire for posting a photo and smiling arm in arm with Imam Siraj Wahaj, who's been accused of having ties to terrorism. Yet Hillary, Mamdani is expected to win this election next month. Can I get your reaction to his comments about putting taxes up and up on Fox News?
Well, I can tell you who's really happy about that, Gabriella, and that's all the realtors in Florida, because more New Yorkers are going to leave and they're going to go to Florida. Miami is now a booming financial center. Who would have ever thought that New York City would no longer be the financial center? The amount of businesses that have moved down there is absolutely astronomical. And then I would say also with regard to crime, he isn't advocating for more police on the streets. All the things that he just said there with regard to raising the taxes 2%, those those aren't things that he's also promising. He isn't. And I do think that the Jewish population in New York City should be very concerned, absolutely concerned, because you just mentioned who he had with him. And he has also even said, as an imam, he preached saying that he wanted marches of 10,000 people. And he's talked about obviously he's very anti-Semitic. And I think Jewish people in New York should be extremely concerned.
Yeah, I think they are. Now, US Vice President J.D. Vance is on his way to Israel to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu to oversee Trump's ceasefire deal in Gaza. Now, the president has made it clear that they will be eradicating Hamas if they have to. Here's Donald Trump.
We made a deal with Hamas that, they're going to be very good, they're going to behave, they're going to be nice, and if they're not, we're going to go and we're going to eradicate them if we have to. They'll be eradicated, and they know that.
Hillary, Steve Witkoff also gave an emotional interview after securing the release of the living hostages that are now finally back with their families. Let's listen.
How are you feeling when they come up?
Elated. And I was thinking to myself, what would I have felt like when I got the call from Cedars-Sinai Hospital that my son had died? If the call from them was, he didn't die.
Oh, God.
We revived him. And these people were all getting that type of call. Their kids were coming home.
You can see that it is such a powerful moment for Steve Witkoff and really such a huge part of his life's work, getting those hostages home, Hillary.
Yes, it absolutely is. And just linking these two stories, when I mentioned about Jewish New Yorkers should be scared about Mondami, in the US, 73% of Jewish people vote for the Democrats. I just hope that they're watching and they're paying attention to this, because President Trump has done more for Israel, more for the Jewish people than any other president in recent memory. And Steve Witkoff, yes, you saw that emotional testimony there. He means this from the bottom of his heart. And is there any parent who wouldn't want their child returned to them? So I think what he's done, what Jared Kushner did, they went there together. They went there to secure this. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And I hope, as I mentioned, every single Jewish voter is looking at this, and all those Jewish voters that vote for the Democrats realize it's President Trump that's accomplished this.
Absolutely. Now, finally, former Joe Biden White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre has unleashed on the Democrat Party in her new memoir, explaining why she decided to ditch the Democrats altogether and become an independent. Now, she wrote about Joe Biden and how he was essentially pushed out of the race last year, and she wrote, "I was angry and sad and was enraged and heartbroken that this man had given more than 50 years of his life to serving the American people, and in the end, he'd been treated poorly by members of his own party. It was horrible." I mean, Hillary, it's interesting reading these comments coming out of her memoir, because we've just heard really Kamala Harris blasting the Democrats as well in her book, 107 Days. And Karine Jean-Pierre, Kamala Harris, neither of them are really helping the Democrats right now.
No, they're not. And I look at it as sort of like the Ides of March, A2 Bruti, because I look at it as another stab, right? I mean, the Democratic Party, this is the last thing they need. They need everyone on board, because they're sinking in the polls. They're not doing well at all. And I do think they don't have much of a future, because who's the leader of the Democratic Party? Who are they going to put up? It's purported that obviously Kamala is thinking about running for a national position again, and she didn't win any of the swing states, any of the popular vote, the electoral college. So I think this is very bad. And Karine Jean-Pierre, I mean, what she's saying is actually the sentiment of a lot of Democrats, and they're split, divided, and they're a divided party across the nation, and that's one of their problems.
Hillary Fordwidge, president and founder of Stromark, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure, Gabriella. Thank you for having me.
It's time for Media Meltdowns, and woke Hollywood actor Robert De Niro has graced the airwaves of MSNBC with an insightful message to share, claiming that millions of Americans believe Donald Trump, not because Donald Trump is someone who clearly delivers on his promises, such as closing the border, deporting illegals, ending the war in Gaza and so on, but because these Americans are not watching enough of the mainstream media. Listen to this.
They're used to seeing Trump do his stuff, and they talk and they listen, and that's the truth to them, because they don't listen to anything else. It's somewhere way out in the Midwest, somewhere out in the out west, in certain places, the rural places. That's the truth, because he gets the airtime, and I think that we need more airtime.
Yes, many Americans are not brainwashed by the leftist media and have stopped watching networks like MSNBC and CNN altogether. Yet Robert De Niro claims that he has a solution, and that is to push more anti-Trump news content or stop reporting on the president altogether.
The news media could find ways to kind of ignore or tamp down nonsense from Trump. It's just total nonsense. But those people out there listen to it and assume if it can be on the air and it's out there, it's the truth.
So what is the truth, according to Robert De Niro? It is that Kamala Harris was incredibly popular, Joe Biden is as sharp as a tack, Stephen Miller is a Nazi, and Donald Trump is on his way to destroying the world.
Donald Trump wants to destroy not only the city, but the country, and eventually he could destroy the world.
Joining us now is Chief Economist at the Institute of Public Affairs, Adam Crichton. Adam, thank you so much for joining us once again. Robert De Niro, I mean, he's had Trump derangement syndrome for some time now, but isn't it ironic to hear him on MSNBC of all places to say that the American people who don't watch the mainstream media are certainly not getting the truth?
No, it's just extraordinary. I mean, that station, MSNBC, has really been the biggest purveyor of misinformation, I would say, of all the networks in the US. There's the Russiagate scandal, you know, the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. There was Trump said that Nazis are very fine people. There are so many examples of this. And, you know, it's also a very insulting comment to ordinary Americans who can make up their own minds. I mean, one of the glories now of the media landscape is that there is so much choice and people can, you know, fact-check various claims. There are podcasts, there are newspapers online, there's, of course, cable. So, look, I just think he's very bitter that the Trump presidency at the moment has had quite a few wins in recent weeks. And I think there's a lot of anger about that. Actually, there was a movie, I think, in the late 1990s that De Niro was in called Analyze This. And I think he played a criminal who had to see a psychiatrist to get a better understanding of the world. Well, you know, maybe this is a chance for art to finally imitate life.
Yes.
Life imitate art, rather.
Yes, I think so. You know, you look on MSNBC's webpage, I visit it constantly, and you barely see the president getting any recognition. I mean, they moved on from his significant achievement ending the war in Gaza in a matter of days. A matter of days. Correct. It absolutely is. And as you say, De Niro's comments are pretty insulting to the American people. They can absolutely make up their own mind and get the truth absolutely anywhere else apart from MSNBC and CNN.
Certainly.
But Adam, finally, after nine... Oh, sorry, no, you go.
No, I was just going to say the left's always criticising Fox News, but I honestly think MSNBC makes Fox News look like the BBC in 1965. I mean, it's so far left and extreme that, I mean, it's a comedic statement of De Niro. Sorry.
No, I couldn't agree more, but I'm eager to talk to you about this meeting that's finally taken place after 9 long months. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has finally met with Donald Trump at the White House. And just the fact that it has taken 9 months is not a joke when you consider how much the president gets done every single day. And it's taken more than 270 days for the president to make time for Anthony Albanese. And you look at what he has done in that time. I mean, Donald Trump has had one-on-one meetings with leaders of Israel, Argentina, India, South Africa, Ukraine, Russia, the UK, France. I mean, it goes on and on. He's met with more than 20 world leaders. It is only now that we are approaching the 1-year mark of Trump 2.0 that this meeting has finally taken place. So certainly shows you where we stand with the United States, which I think, of course, makes sense when you look at how Anthony Albanese is running Australia. But today, of course, the two leaders signed a major $8.5 billion rare earths and critical minerals deal. And the president also showed his support for the AUKUS submarine deal, insisting that it is moving along rapidly. But it was, of course, this question by Sky News political editor Andrew Clennell that is getting headlines right around the world, with the president blasting Australia's ambassador to the US, Kevin Rudd.
I don't know anything about him. I mean, if he said bad, then maybe he'll like to apologize. I really don't know Did an ambassador say something bad about it? Don't tell me. I don't. Where is he? Is he still working for you?
Yeah.
You said bad?
Before I took this position, Mr. President.
I don't like you either. I don't, and I probably never will.
Adam, can I please get your reaction?
Well, look, I mean, I think actually the president was very gracious, I think, to Kevin Rudd. It could have gone a lot worse than that. I think Trump showed himself to be a great statesman there, really. I mean, the things that Rudd said were really nasty. You know, the most destructive president in US history and various other things like that. I mean, I think actually that Rudd got off pretty well from that exchange. But I should add that, you know, I really think Rudd should step aside from that position. I think, you know, this has put the Australian government, I think, in a very awkward position because, you know, of course, they can't sack Rudd now because it looks like we're servile to the United States then. But, of course, Rudd can, you know, he can find another job. He's got extensive contacts. I'm sure there's plenty of jobs in the UN that he could take, and he hasn't taken them, which I think, you know, I think it's bad for Australia because I know, you know, Trump kind of played it down there, but it is embarrassing that you have, you know, one of the best allies of the United States and the ambassador says Trump is the most destructive president in US history. I mean, that's not really tenable in my books.
No, he's called Donald Trump a village idiot. He's made other comments saying he's a traitor to the West. And then Kevin Rudd had to, you know, chase down Donald Trump and then offer this apology after Donald Trump kind of suggested that maybe he should apologise for those comments. But I agree with you. I don't think it really helps Australia and our relationship with the United States. I mean, the fact that it has taken this long to finally get this meeting, and now the headlines around the world is that Donald Trump has blasted Kevin Rudd. But Adam, what do you make of how the relationship will go between Australia and the US from here? I suppose what the two leaders were able to achieve today was significant, signing a major rare earths deal to, of course, counter China's dominance, and now rare earth stocks have certainly jumped. And the president also showed his support for AUKUS. Let's just take a listen.
It was made a while ago, and nobody did anything about it, and it was going too slowly. We do actually have a lot of submarines. We have the best submarines in the world, anywhere in the world, and we're building a few more currently under construction. And now we're starting. We have it all set. With Anthony, we've worked on this long and hard, and we're starting that process right now, and I think it's really moving along very rapidly, very well.
Adam, what's your assessment of the rest of the meeting?
Well, look, I think it was a win for Albanese. I think it was a win for Australia. It could have gone a lot worse, actually. I mean, there's so many points of foreign policy disagreement and domestic policy disagreement that Trump could have brought up, but he really didn't. And not only did he not do that, he said AUKUS is going ahead and the subs are going ahead, the rare earths deal. I mean, certainly Albanese would have been very scared, I think, on the way over because, as you said earlier in the program, 9 months or something like that between, you know, where there wasn't a meeting, and that was indeed very embarrassing. But Trump, you know, again, just like I said before, he's quite gracious and diplomatic when he wants to be. And I think probably people were in his ear before the meeting, I would say, from the State Department saying Australia's very important, Australia's very important. And so he was nice. And, you know, I mean, he even said that our defence spending was, you know, kind of okay. So, look, I mean, I think, you know, the appearance of it, the Labor government will certainly take that as a win.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about what's happening in Victoria. I mean, what a mess it is. 2 Victorian police officers had to be hospitalised over the weekend after left-wing activists attacked officers during protests in Melbourne. Let's listen to Victoria Police.
The people that came to pick the fight with police were the issue-motivated groups on the left. I can tell you that the March for Australia group, they were peaceful, they were engaging, they listened to our instructions, they did what they were told, and they protested by example. The disruption to Melbourne, to the general public who want to come into our fine city, the disruption to businesses, we really need to find an answer of what we do.
So, Adam, police making it very clear who's causing trouble here, left-wing activists, far left-wing activists. Yet that seemed to have been missed by many of our mainstream media outlets.
No, look, certainly that's true. After the march on Sunday, I went to The Age to read what had happened, and I read an article, and it sounded like from the article that it was all the March for Australia people that were doing terrible things. And then later on in the day, I saw that clip, and I thought, hang on, that's the complete opposite of what was reported, basically, or certainly what was implied. So it's good that the police were calling out the truth. And You know, my experience is at least that the left-wing protests are extremely vicious and violent. In fact, you know, a few months ago when I first arrived in Melbourne, I found myself caught up in a trans rights protest on Bourke Street. I wasn't willingly there, but I was there and I saw the way they treated the police and it was unbelievably bad, spitting on them, screaming at them. You know, I was really shocked. So it's good that the police have said that and, you know, maybe that goes some way to restoring the public's respect for the Victorian police because, of course, it's COVID. Their reputation has declined somewhat. But, you know, most of the March for Australia people, I think, were very peaceful from what I hear. And yet on the other side, there were burnings of Australian flags and so forth. Very disappointing.
And it's refreshing to hear the truth from the police there, making that really important point that most of the people who turned out for the March for Australia rally were peaceful. And look, Adam, I've been in similar situations as you when I've spent plenty of years in Melbourne reporting and covering protests. I've seen some very far left-wing activists be very aggressive and it's really not a pleasant experience at all.
Yeah, just a broader point. Just a broader point on Victoria. It's, you know, really sad. The press Victoria has been getting recently is just absolutely shocking, whether it's crime or economics. And I just can't believe that the state government here doesn't realise how bad it is for their citizens. I mean, people are moving away, house prices are falling. It's very sad, not just for Victoria, but also for Australia too.
It is.
So I really think the Labor government down there is a black mark on the country at the moment. But anyway, maybe that was...
No, I agree with you. And Premier Jacinta Allen must be divorced from reality. I mean, she's insisting that the city is safe as Melbourne's right in the middle of this horrific crime wave, Adam.
Yeah, that's true. Indeed, some crime statistics came out recently, at least on the burglary and the carjacking front. The absolute numbers are actually double in Victoria from New South Wales, which is extraordinary. Because the population, of course, in New South Wales is about 20-30% higher, but there are actually more crimes down there. And I think, a part of the reason I think is the rate of incarceration in Victoria is just so low. I think the rate there, from memory, the IPA did some research on this recently, and Victoria has the lowest rate of incarceration in the country, 104, I think, per 100,000. And in New South Wales, 194, and I think in Western Australia, 200 and something. So, if you're not putting criminals in jail, well, of course there's going to be more crime on the streets. And the Andrews government, the Allen government, they've changed the laws, I think, repeatedly in the last 5 years to basically make it harder for the judiciary to put people in prison.
That's exactly right. And I think if you look at what's happening now also is partly the result of Daniel Andrews putting Melbourne and Victoria through one of the world's longest lockdowns. And I mean, it's horrific for so many citizens. But I think it's very frustrating for everyone in Australia, not even people in Melbourne, to hear from Premier Jacinta Allen saying that the city is safe when, any day now that you turn on the news, there's another machete attack. And so she's just gaslighting Victorians. But Adam Crichton, thank you so much for joining us. Brilliant to speak with you.
Thanks very much.
Joining us now is skynews.com.au columnist Louise Roberts. Louise, thank you for joining us.
Good to see you as always, Gabriella.
Before we get into all the royal news, you've written a really interesting piece for our website about how Gen Z are starting to really wake up to the impact mass migration is having here in Australia, considering there's been a jump of 24% in the number of young Aussies who want a temporary migration pause. That's a significant shift.
It is a significant shift because it's only happened in the last 12 months. And I think the important thing about Gen Z, which is that 18 to 24-year-old age group, is that politicians have relied on them or assumed that they're the bleeding heart generation and will be happy with any level of migration. Open the borders, we have to support everyone. But this is very much a case of economic reality overriding ideology, I think. And it could be, we were talking earlier about Charlie Kirk's influence, that 100%. It's not racist or nationalist to actually want to protect your own standard of living. They're not being racist. They're not saying no to migrants. They're just saying, which older generations have been saying for some time, let's pause it. Let the infrastructure and the housing and healthcare and roads and everything and schools, let it all catch up and let us calibrate as a society, because more people doesn't necessarily mean a better standard of living. And I think young Aussies who are finding it hard to rent, let alone 100%. Buy a home or get a job or do anything that they expected they would do in their mid-20s, and they can see that migration is putting such a massive strain on our way of life. And it's not racist to say that, and thank goodness they've actually come to the party and realised that's the case.
And it's interesting you mentioned Charlie Kirk because he spoke to so many Americans about the issue and the concerns around mass migration and the importance of having strong borders. And so although he spoke to so many young Americans, he also reached so many young Australians. So it'd be interesting to see whether he really played an influence, and as well as the fact that so many young Australians are really feeling the pinch and starting to wake up.
That's right, and it's a wake-up call to Canberra. They've made assumptions about this generation who are, in the newer cohort of voters, let's face it, 18 to 24, 25, and they have to really look at their policy now to say, well, we were more worried about the older generation saying they didn't want migration or mass migration. Now we have to address the younger people who are going to be the taxpayers and really building the society of the future of Australia.
And you look at the events over the weekend, people taking part in the March for Australia protests, and obviously, of course, there are some people who are very extreme, but a lot of very genuine Australians that really want to make sure Australia culture remains alive and we don't rely on mass migration is, of course, the point there. But let's talk about the royal news because it's been massive royal news over the weekend. Prince Andrew has officially given up his royal title of the Duke of York, along with his honours, following a discussion with his brother, King Charles. So he put out a statement saying, "In discussion with the King and my immediate and wider family, we have concluded the continued accusations about me, distraction from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. I've decided, as I always have, to put my duty to my family and country first. I will therefore no longer use my title or the honours which have been conferred upon me. As I have said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me." Louise, I think this really needed to happen.
It did need to happen, but let's be clear, Andrew's not made some kind of noble sacrifice here.
Absolutely not.
His arm's been twisted somewhat by his brother and certainly by his nephew. I think Charles, in a way, has been very cautious and he's quite sentimental about family ties, obviously being his younger brother, but William is far more clinical and corporate, and his reign will be very much, if you're in as a royal, you have to prove your worth and don't feel that you can sort of, lapse onto the train here and sort of, get all the benefits without being a proper working royal. But, I feel for Andrew losing his title, it's a necessary amputation to save the body of the monarchy in a way. They have to be clinical, they have to be brutal, and every week there's a new scandal with Andrew. I mean, those emails over the weekend, he said in that, catastrophic 2019 Newsnight interview, I'd cut off contact in December 2010 and clearly was still emailing Jeffrey Epstein by February, March the following year. So his contradictions have been exposed. So it's very well for him to say in that rather pompous statement, I have decided to put my duty and my family first. Andrew only puts Andrew first, clearly. He's been painted into a corner, and I would love to have been a fly on the wall when Charles had the conversation with him. And
me too.
Particularly if William was in the room. I mean, we saw the footage outside Princess Markle of Kent's funeral where Andrew was trying to engage William in some sort of general chit-chat and William was not having it. He had a face of granite. You was thinking, just get away from me. I know the cameras are on us, but I want nothing to do with you.
Oh, yeah, you can see it, can't you? And the Met has launched an investigation into claims that Prince Andrew recruited the force to dig up dirt, really, on his accuser, Virginia Giuffre. So this investigation is ongoing into reports that Andrew used one of his taxpayer-funded bodyguards for an attempted smear campaign against Virginia. Is that right?
I know. Well, that's the allegation. It's a very, very serious allegation, but it's also quite disgusting that he was apparently going to these lengths using taxpayer-funded palace security to dig up dirt, dig up her social security number, her date of birth, and find out anything he could to try and discredit a woman who, of course, he still denies ever meeting in person, despite the photographic evidence to the contrary, and denied that he ever sexually abused her. And, of course, Virginia took her own life in April. And it was such a tragic end to a terrible life for her. And down the line now, the repercussions are being felt very much, I think, by a lot of people.
Let's talk about Fergie and what's going to happen with her, because the reports are that King Charles has vowed to protect Beatrice and Eugenie, whereas Fergie, Sarah Ferguson, faces life without her title, Duchess of York. Of course, she agreed not to use it after Prince Andrew relinquished his Duke title after the ongoing fallout with Jeffrey Epstein. But what's going to happen with Fergie?
Well, I think what's happened with Andrew losing his title and now her losing Duchess of York, it just proves that the York brand is totally toxic within the royal circles. And yes, I have read that Charles will somewhat try and ring fence Beatrice and Eugenie as his nieces, because they shouldn't pay for the sins of the parents, clearly, but I wouldn't expect them to have any front and centre row. Don't expect to see them on the palace balcony for any kind of fly past or anything anytime soon. I don't think he's going to throw them under a bus, but at the same time, he's not going to be putting them forward when William's reign is very much going to be a very streamlined monarchy, I think. But it's just amazing that I think Fergie and Andrew have become so undone by their devotion to Jeffrey Epstein. It just beggars belief. And Fergie has survived so many scandals over the years, and in recent times, in fact, a lot of that to do with her Australian connections has sort of been somewhat rehabilitated. I sensed a real sort of renewed affection for her, that, you know, she's been a victim in the past, and the toe sucking and the scandals and the royal things, everything else that has gone wrong, it really hadn't been her fault. Deep down, she's a decent person. I think the line was crossed, though, when that email was revealed that she was calling Epstein a treasured friend. And I don't think even her most diehard fans are going to stand by her when she's endorsing a pedophile in that way. So I think that was the end for her.
Yeah,
really.
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
What about Meghan and Harry? Because there are reports that Prince Harry, Meghan Markle and their children could be set to lose their royal titles if and when Prince William becomes monarch. Do you think that's what... Well,
I do. I really do feel it will happen, and I think it's important to note that it won't be a revenge play by William. It's very much a reforming play, because when he is King William V, when his father passes on, he's the monarch, he's more aware than anyone, I think, that the monarchy and the royal family have to provide value to the taxpayer and also the Commonwealth as well. That it's not, we don't just keep the royal family because we've always had the royal family. They very much have to prove their worth, and he wants to, you know, really push aside anyone who's been freeloading or using their titles for commercial gain. And we know the late Queen had said to Meghan, you know, forbade her from using the HRH title. And of course, Meghan's just blithely got ahead and done that and tried to commercialise it wherever she can. But it's a reform play by William. I think he just wants to keep it a very tight monarchy, but also he wants to reward the people who do actually do the work and do it quietly without any fanfare. Princess Anne is a perfect example of that.
And I think there'd be plenty of support to see Prince Harry and Meghan Markle lose those titles. Now, Meghan Markle's very short-lived podcast series, Confessions of a Female Founder, has picked up 2 honours in the annual Signal Awards for podcasting. So despite being really a flop, Meghan's podcast picked up 2 nods at the Signal Awards, and Confessions won a Gold Award in the Business People and Entrepreneurs Shaping Culture category of the Signal Awards, which aims to recognise meaningful podcasts. Surely there's some backlash to this decision.
Would think so.
But were you surprised? What did you make of it?
Well, I do feel that Meghan's building this empire of perception. It's not actually what the talent is. It's more the, you know, the smoke and mirrors. I think she's very good at that. And I don't know how involved she was in the entry or who the other contenders were. I do feel a bit sorry for them, because no doubt there would have been probably some pretty talented people doing some podcasts, and sort of Meghan steamed in and won. But, you know, it's a show that flopped. It vanished pretty quickly. So the fact that it's won the award, I think, sort of highlights what type of award that is, I would feel.
I mean, the podcast title itself, Confessions of a Female Founder, that's really what she's been so desperately trying to rebrand herself as.
She has. Yeah, but I don't remember any great... I don't remember any great tips or tricks that you could sort of pass on if you were a potential female CEO. It was all just waffle.
All waffle, 100%. Yeah. But there are reports that she's planning on moving into cosmetics. So this is part of her lifestyle brand as ever, and there are reports that she'll be trying to go down the cosmetics area. What more can you tell us about this?
Look, I would say this is probably true. I think if you want to make big money as a celebrity, you launch a makeup line, like serious money. It's not flower sprinkles or, you know, little jars of jam or the things she's sort of been tinkering around the edges with. It's the Kylie Jenners and the Rihannas of this world who've become billionaires, producing their own makeup line. And there's been some Instagram posts which Meghan sort of dropped of her applying lipstick at her dressing table, and none of the labels of the products she's using are visible, which apparently, I've learned, is code in the beauty industry that she's about to launch her own sort of product. So she wants to sort of set the scene of someone who applies makeup and is a makeup expert and possibly would know how to do her face up. And has apparently also met with Chloe Marle, who's the new esteemed young editor of Vogue in New York. So she's trying to sort of, feather her nest in the makeup land. But I don't think Kylie Jenner or Rihanna have got anything to worry about for the time being.
No, I don't think they do. Louise Roberts, so wonderful to talk to you.
Good
Thank
to
you
see
so much.
Thank you.
And that is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. We'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.